The views, information, or opinions expressed during this show are solely those of the individuals presenting them and do not necessarily represent those of That Fuzzing Rock Show or its creators and writers. Cancel context, not humor. Enjoy the show. Folks, we got another great one. Welcome back to That Fuzzing Rock Show interviews. We got another great one for you guys today. We are talking today with Jon from Sandrider. Jon, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Listen, man, the pleasure's all mine. Appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us today. We're here all to talk about the new album from Sandrider. It's called, I'm going to get it wrong, I know, because I can't read my own writing, but
no, you got this. You got this.
And Envelitration.
Yeah, that's it.
I feel accomplished now. It's out now via Satanic Royalty Records. You guys can check your streaming platforms for availability, and we'll totally get to all that in just a bit. So first, I want to talk about you for a little bit. What first got you into being a musician? What made you want to be a musician?
I think it was probably pretty inevitable. I grew up in a house with my father was a music teacher. So instruments all over my house, a lot of art appreciation and music appreciation happening in my house as a kid. When I was very young, I would like pantomime playing rock music with like fake guitars and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And then I think it was probably like when Nirvana kind of exploded, and that really got me. I was really into Metallica too. I don't know. It was always going to happen. It was never not going to happen. But it wasn't until I heard punk rock for the first time that it clicked. Like, oh, I can do this. Like, I don't need to be good. You know, my first punk tape was the Germs on one side and the Misfits on the other side. And it was
my God.
Like, oh, I can already do this. Like, these guys are putting out records. Like, let's go.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome. So like what other kind of punk influence? Because you're in you guys are from Seattle. Mm-hmm. So of course you have that big grunge influence that killed the hair bands. Way to go. But yeah, you guys are from there. So that's what kind of punk influence did you have besides like Misfits and the Germs?
Yeah, it was I mean, like all the good shit, right? Like growing up, like once you crack into that scene and you're like, okay, I like punk rock. There's just so many ways you can go. Mm-hmm. And it was like back before the internet, you just kind of had to do research. So like it'd be like going to like CD stores and record stores and finding out what they're advertising as punk. Going to like, you know, all ages shows when I was a kid, and you just see someone with like a jacket with a bunch of patches on it. And if you see the same logo enough times, like, okay, I'm gonna check that band out. So like,
there you go.
Just following that rabbit hole of like just, you know, being around record stores and all ages shows, like a bunch of the early bands, or like Black Flag. You see Black Flag everywhere. It's like, oh, okay, we'll go check out Black Flag.
My favorite.
Yeah, right. The Exploited, Circle Jerks, Subhumans, the Subhumans UK, not BC.
Right.
A bunch of that stuff was like super great and exciting. My dad, like I said, my dad is a musician. He knows all kinds of great stuff. When he would hear me listening to like, you know, Misfits and stuff like that, and he'd be like, hey, you should check out this band, and he like turned me on to Dead Kennedys when I was a kid. And I was like, thanks, Dad, this is great.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
So, and then yeah, like the first time you get a Dead Kennedys CD or record, they were so good at marketing. Like Alternative Tentacles was so good at marketing. They just like, you'd have that pamphlet in there, and then all of a sudden there's like, oh, here's like, now I'm finding out about like No Means No and DOA and like Lard and like all this Alice Donut, like all this crazy cool stuff that they were. And then I heard Minor Threat, and that blew me away. And I started reading about Minor Threat, and they're like, well, we're just trying to copy the Bad Brains. And then I got into Bad Brains, and that threw me into hardcore like really hard. And then I started listening to a lot of the early hardcore stuff. That was very like punk adjacent, like Warzone. I loved Warzone.
Sure. Yeah.
Trial, Seattle band Trial was awesome. Mm-hmm. And you start going to like punk and hardcore shows out here, and then Seattle had a really cool scene where there was just a lot of blending of stuff. So like I'd go to see Trial, and then Botch was opening, and Botch doesn't sound anything like Trial, but Botch is cool and weird and different. And then, we had friends who were playing in bands, and they started the Blood Brothers that would get on these hardcore shows. And like Blood Brothers was insane and fucking weird and like totally out of left field.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. That's sort of like the fast version of how I got into it.
You mentioned record stores before. Don't you miss them days, man?
Yeah.
I could spend hours in record stores, bro. Like,
yep.
And I miss that, being able to like just hold it in your hand, look at it, flip it over, look at the back, like.
Oh yeah. It's awesome. And it was really cool. I mean, I appreciate having access to music on the internet now. It's
Sure.
awesome. I can find out about any band in the world at any time, and that's wonderful. But there was definitely something super special about holding a record in your hand, like looking at the art, reading the song titles, and thinking, like, as a teenager, you're like, I've got $20. If I buy this, it better not suck,
Right, exactly.
And then take it home, like in that first listen, and just be like, okay. And like, oh yes, it's good, or like, oh fuck, this sucks, I hate it. Like,
it was almost like you enjoyed the experience of the record store just as much as you would the record. That was part of it. Was just kind of like being there in that environment and listening to what they're playing, and then looking through stuff and be like, oh, I got to check this out.
Yeah,
I do miss those days for sure.
Yeah,
but like you said, it's great to have it at your fingertips, but you just kind of miss that experience as a thumbing through the albums and be like, oh shit, I forgot this one even existed. And take that one. So I'm gonna do 5 questions rapid fire just to kind of get us going. So the first one is, what was the name of your first band?
The Dissidents.
What was the first album that you ever bought?
Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J.
The biggest audience you've ever played for?
Oh man, I'm not sure. Maybe like 2,000-ish people. Akimbo was on a tour with Blood Brothers, and we landed a show on that tour, not because of us, but because we were with Blood Brothers, supporting the Locust and the Rapture in San Diego. And it was in a giant hall. I think there's maybe about 2,000, 2,500 people there. That might be the biggest one.
All right. This one's always a good one. Now, without throwing anybody under the bus, what is the worst oops you've ever had on stage?
So my old band Akimbo, I played bass in, and I used to play, this is not a rapid fire question, but it's a story.
Right.
I used to play an Ernie Ball Music Master, which has active pickups, which you need a battery to charge.
Sure.
We got an opening spot for Melvins at the Showbox in Seattle, which is a beautiful venue, supporting the Melvins on New Year's Eve. So this was like the coolest fucking show you could ever hope to play,
for
right?
Sure, yeah.
I was a bar back at the time. That was my main source of income, and I had to work that night at a bar across town. So it was like, it's New Year's Eve, so busy as fuck, and I had to do all this like sort of like talking with my managers and my coworkers and the staff. I just say, like, I can't not play this show. I need to go do this. I'm going to be gone for like an hour and a half. Right. That was the plan, is just like stop my shift, take a cab to the venue, play the set, get in the cab, go back to work. And so it's fine. We do all that stuff. I get in the cab, I go to the show, and my bass doesn't fucking work. And it was because of the battery wasn't dead on the active pickup, but at some point during load-in, the little thing that like clicks it in the back of the bass had gotten just slightly unclicked, so it was like not making a complete connection there.
Gotcha.
And so I played through a bunch of distortion pedals, and actually like there was enough distortion to still make the signal of the bass like sound decent when the pedals were on. But basically anytime I pulled the pedal on or off, the sound completely went away. And so basically I had like a massive technical blunder opening for the Melvins on New Year's Eve in Seattle. And that was probably the biggest oopsie I've ever had on stage.
That's not bad. I've heard, way worse horror stories. So I think you made out okay on that one. If that was your biggest one, you made out well. So now I know we talked about influences, older influences. Is there anybody out there today, old bands with new music or new bands with new music? Is there anything out there that's got your ear right now?
Yeah, so much. I actually, as much as I love the classics, I really crave new music, and I'm constantly on the search for like new bands and what stuff is people doing. I would say bands right now that I really enjoy and feel influenced by. Probably the biggest one is Horrors. When I first heard Horrors, so again, I love simple riffs. Right, like the less is more approach.
Sure.
Like if you can just write like a catchy thing that feels familiar but is also new, that's the kind of music I love. So when I first heard Horrors, I was like, oh, these guys are fucking experts at making the most simple, basic riff still sound new and fresh and absolutely crushing. So I love that. Author and Punisher is insanely cool. I love what he's doing. What else? What else am I digging these days? Russian Circles. They just continue to knock it out of the park with every release. Helms Alee. Oh my God, Seattle band Helms Alee. I don't even know how they're magic. They're like a magical band. I don't know how they come up with that stuff. Yeah, all kinds of good shit.
See, this is the easiest way I can find new bands is to ask people from around the country, and then I write them down while I'm doing the interview, and I check them out later.
Yeah,
and it's cool because I get to discover a whole bunch of new stuff. I'm just like you. I like to hear the newer stuff that's out there. So that's the easiest way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate it. So let's dig into the band a little bit. Introduce the other bandmates and what they do. Let people know who else is in the band.
Okay. So I play guitar and I do some yelling and singing. We also have Jesse Roberts, who's our bass player, and he does some vocals and singing and yelling too. And then we have Nat Dam, who's our drummer. Nat and I have been best buds since we were freshmen in high school. We've played in almost every band we've done together. And Sandrider is the latest in a long history of musical projects that we've had together.
The latest incarnation is as
it
were.
Yeah.
So how did you guys all get together? I know you guys had a Kimbo before.
Yeah.
How did you guys get together and make Sandrider a thing?
Sure. Sandrider started while Akimbo was starting to fizzle out. Akimbo was a very, very hardworking band, and I was exhausted. It was starting to feel like a job making record after record, going on tour. Playing local shows, practicing twice a week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just needed to step back. And I learned to play on guitar, and then I switched to bass for Akimbo. And I was really wanting to play guitar again in a project. And I wanted to just do something a little bit more chill and just for fun. And as I said, Nat is my musical brother in life. And so he and I just started, meeting up at the practice space. I'd bring a guitar instead of bass, and we would just sort of like, just have fun, play around with ideas and stuff. And then Jesse is a tattoo artist. He was tattooing me one day. His old band, he played bass in this band called the Ruby Doe, which I was a big fan of, and Akimbo did a bunch of shows with. So he's tattooing me, and we were, I'm sitting there. I'm in a lot of pain, very uncomfortable. And I just blurt out like, hey, would you maybe want to come hang out with me and Nat and, play bass with some of the stuff we're working on? And so he did. And it was just like, it just absolutely clicked that first practice. It was just like, yep, this is the guy. He completely locks in with how we play. It was just, yeah, it was a no-brainer at that point. It's like, oh, cool. All right. This is going to be a project. And then as Akimbo started to like, stopped playing and we realized we were done as a band. It just felt like natural. It was like, okay, we've got Sandrider going. Let's just do that. So that's how it's been.
What year was that you guys got together?
God, like 2007 or something.
7, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know the first release self-titled album was 2011.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
We recorded that thing and we just sat on it for years. Like it was like basically we ran into Matt Bayless at a show and he offered to record a demo for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, cool, yeah. We like recorded the demo and then we just didn't release it. We had it was finished for years. And then it like our friends like got a hold of it and were like passing it around, like burned CDRs of it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then our friend Nick in Seattle here started Good to Die Records, and he just cold called us out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, your demo's awesome. I want to put it out." And we're like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Might as well, right?
Yeah.
So you guys had Godhead in 2013, Armada in 18,
Mm-hmm.
which brings us to the new one, Enveloration. I'm going to get it right every time now. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, Enveloration.
So this is the first album on the new label.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you guys switch labels, as long as it's not like a, you know, if you don't want to get into it, that's fine. But what made you guys switch labels?
Well, our old label basically was done. You know, he had a great run. He put out a bunch of awesome music from some killer bands, Northwest bands. And then he just kind of he got tired. It's exhausting. Like running a label is a lot of fucking work. And
sure it is.
I think most people can imagine that, but actually doing that work is like, it's grueling. And there's a lot of like trips to the post office, a lot of packing records and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think he was just ready to move on to other stuff. And so we were kind of without a home for a little bit. And then Freiberger started up Satanic Royalty in Seattle. And we were one of the first bands he approached about, you know, having on his launch roster. And it was just perfect timing, basically.
Sure.
Kind of just like, you know, parted ways with our old label. And then, oh, look, there's a new one over there.
Sorry, man, I got the worst cough today. I have no idea where it came from. And I'm trying to mute so I'm not coughing in your ear.
That's all good.
So Enveloration, it's out now on Satanic Royalty Records.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this album. Where did you guys record it?
Recorded it at Litho here in Seattle, which is a studio that I've always wanted to get into. Mm-hmm. Pretty much every record I've heard come out of there sounds totally killer. So yeah, we ponied up the money and we went there. Yeah, I think it was worth. Sounds pretty good. Sounds all right. Sounds
great. How long did it take you guys to write the album?
It took a long time because pandemic. So we had some of the songs were written and finished before COVID happened. And then COVID happened and we didn't practice for almost a year, basically. And over the course of that time, did a little songwriting like digitally and like passed files around to each other.
Sure.
And then there were some songs that we had that just died on the vine during COVID too. So we sort of like first practice after we all got vaccinated and we're back in the practice space together. We sort of just like, you know, took stock of the songs we had, figured out the ones we want to keep, figured out the ones that were okay leaving in the dust, and then wrote another batch. So we kind of wrote it in like two chunks.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you find that this is kind of an awkward question, I guess, but do you find that the songs that because obviously you guys don't throw anything away, you don't just, you know, dump it. That song is always going to be somewhere in your archives. Do you find that like years later you can pick that song out and kind of give it new life, or once it's dead, it's dead? How does that work?
Yeah, I think you know, if we don't record, if we have a song and it's like half written or half done and we don't record it, in my mind that's fair game. You know, you can pull a riff out of there and plug it into some other song to see if that works. We've totally done that a bunch of times. Yeah,
so you get kind of, it's almost like a organ donor for another song, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Take it out of one, put it in the other.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the pandemic now. Did you guys get a lot of writing done during that time, like individually?
Yeah, not at first, because at first everyone was like, this will be over in a week.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe a month. Maybe 2 months, right? And then once you hit like half a year and there's still no vaccines and everything's still shut down, then it was like, oh shit, okay, we don't know how long this is going to be. And yeah, for like speaking personally, like I've been going to band practice and playing shows and writing music my whole life since I was like 12, 13 years old. And to have that suddenly just stop was brutal on my mental health. Like I had a ton of anxiety and depression, and I was stressed out and like not the best partner to my family. Yeah, so yeah, I had to figure some shit out. Like how do I get this back? So yeah, we definitely did a fair amount of writing in isolation. I started a solo project in isolation because I was just like, I need to make stuff or my brain goes crazy. My brain turns me into a bad person.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I hear you.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of writing.
So what's the first single off the new album?
The first single is Alia. That's the first song on the record.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about that one.
The subject matter is about Alia Atreides, the character from the Dune series. Very interesting character. And I mean, the music is just, that's one of those, that's a riff that we wrote before COVID. Total ripper, real fun to play. And the first half was all pretty structured. And then the last part of the song where it gets a little bit like gallopy and triumphant, that all sort of came together on the fly in the practice space. So yeah.
So let's take the self-titled album in this hand and the new one in this hand. So from 2011 to 2022-23, how do you feel that the band's sound has changed, if any, from 11 to now?
It probably has changed a lot in ways that are obvious to listeners, but in my mind and being so close to it, it feels the same. I feel like we've just been doing the same thing at the same rate for the whole lifespan of the band. And I don't know, it's probably different when you listen to it album to album, because an album is sort of a collection of songs that happened over the course of a year, 2 years.
Right then and there, yeah.
Yeah, but we never changed our songwriting process. We never changed our creative process. We never changed how we interact with each other and come together to make the music. So it just feels like a continuation of the same awesome project that I feel so lucky to be part of with two of my rock solid friends.
Sure. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Exactly.
Now, do you have a favorite on the new album? I know it's like asking you to name your favorite kid. I get it, but
yeah. I would say the ones that are the most enjoyable for me to play are Alia. I really like how that one came together. I really, really like playing Priest, which is towards the end of the record, mostly for the hand feel, like just physicality of playing that song and the way that the sort of the chords hit at certain times, like, is just very, very like physically satisfying for my hands to do. I really enjoy it.
Nice.
And then Grouper, the last song. There's the part towards the end, like the big sort of like chorus at the end, right before the guitar solo.
Yes.
Where it's just dumbed down, just very simple power chords, Jesse and I singing together in harmony. And man, I just feel awesome. I feel fucking awesome whenever we play that part. It's just like, oh, this is the best feeling in the world.
I love it. Do you guys have plans maybe to support the album, tour to support the album?
No plans right now. Touring has been a tough thing for our band. Nat and I are both dads, like relatively new dads. So, yeah, it's like we started families like right as this band was sort of taking off. And then, I spent so much time during Akimbo focusing on music that when we transitioned out of Akimbo, I really wanted to focus on building a more stable life at home. So focusing a little bit more on career and building, stability for myself long term. And so, yeah, the start of Sandrider, which is, like for now it's a decade, right? So,
right.
But that was building family, building career, building stability, and it's starting to feel like we did that. Like we built our families, we have stability now, and I think it's possible to start to get out there and do some targeted touring. Yeah, not going to do more.
Even if it's just some Weekend Warrior stuff, it's still getting out there and feeling the fans,
That's the plan. Definitely not going to do any more 6-week scrolls across the country. I don't need to play Fresno, California ever again, or like all the in-between towns and sleep on floors and all that stuff. I did that. Check. Done it.
Yeah. And driving, hundreds and hundreds of miles to make $200 in a cramped van with shitty venues, and not that all of them are shitty, but let's face it. I'm sure you've been in some that you were just like, why?
Yeah, there are dark days on those tours. There are dark days.
And I bet you wouldn't trade them for any amount of money, right?
Nope, not at all.
There you go. That's right. So tell us what's next for Sandrider. What are you guys up to next?
We have our album release show coming up in Seattle. So if you're in the Northwest, we'd love to see you. It's April 8th at the Sunset Tavern. The next weekend, April 14th, we're playing a free in-store at Easy Street Records in Seattle. So come on down. That'll be all ages too. I'm bringing my kid. Nat's bringing his kids. Bring your kids. Kids will play. Watch a rock band. It'll be a good time.
There you go.
We got some shows coming up through the summer, and then we're gonna do a little collaboration with Holy Mountain Brewing. Gonna do a beer.
Oh, cool!
Our first beer. Pretty excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to tell the folks before we wrap her up?
Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy the music, that's awesome. And thanks for having me.
There you go. Folks, you guys can check out the newest release, Enveloration. It's out now on Satanic Royalty Records. Check your streaming platforms for availability. And for more info, you can check out Facebook and Instagram is at Sandrider Seattle. Twitter is _Sandrider_. Sandrider at Bandcamp, sandrider.bandcamp.com. Go there and buy like 2. Make sure you do it on Bandcamp Friday so they get all of the funds. Try to take care of everybody. And check out satanicroyaltyrecords.com, Facebook and Insta at Satanic Royalty Records, and Twitter is at Records Satanic. And Satanic is with a K, guys, by the way.
Yeah.
Satanic is with a K at the end, and not a C. John, man, listen, I appreciate you hanging out with me. It's been my pleasure for sure. And stop back in again, man. We'll do some more chat. It was fun.
Yeah, dude, I'm down. Just shine the John signal in the sky and I'll come running.
I will put it right up there, man. Ladies and gentlemen, John from Sandrider. John, thank you so much.
All right, take care.